Hello, all you happy people. How you doing tonight? I see Jay's in early. Yeah, beat both Nope and Ed. Good job, Jay. So I toast you. Yeah, I'm drinking Smirnoff Ice tonight because I don't know where I can get Zima anymore, and I am old enough that Zima was a thing. So how's everybody doing tonight? Got an interesting show. Sat down about an hour ago and I thought, do I have enough stuff to talk about for a show? They just got done with live, so kind of cheating. Yeah, it happens. But yeah, so I sat down and I was like, do I have enough stuff to do a show? And I thought, well, I could talk about the death of Vanessa and Daredevil. And I guess I could talk about the Pitt, being that just for season finale and how we've kind of forgotten how to watch TV. And I thought, well, I just wrapped up Young Sherlock and that got renewed. And they're kind of doing a Smallville thing there. So that could be good. And I started watching that new show, R.J. Decker, and I mentioned that. And of course, Christopher Dent looks like he's finally cast for the Batman. Oh, and then there's all those other women saying they have roles in Man of Tomorrow. We could talk about that. Oh, plus another old friend of Gunn is now part of the Man of Tomorrow, and maybe we can guess which character he might be. And there was CinemaCon. There's a lot of really good stuff from CinemaCon we could talk about. And they're doing a Rambo prequel, a First Blood prequel. So, and if we absolutely run out of everything else to talk about, do you know Mark Harmon had one of the craziest lives ever? Yeah, he's still alive, and I don't want to jinx him, but yeah, it seems like a made up biography. It really does. So, yeah, let's just jump in and get to all that. But let's see. Hey, Ed is here now. Good to see you. Mr. Nope's here. Excellent. Good to see you guys. So let's put out the clarion call, get everybody here, and we will hit the ground running. You know what? Let's save Daredevil. Let's talk about R.J. Decker because that's kind of obscure. R.J. Decker is a new show I think it's on ABC. And if you look at the premise of the show, it feels like Rockford, which is ironic because they're in the middle of doing a new Rockford Files with David Boreanaz. So right there, you're thinking that's going to be hard pressed to make a series that feels like Rockford when we're going to get a Rockford. Yep. Mando Hat Day. So what is it that R.J. Decker, why does it have a chance? Well, it stars Scott Speedman, and he is an ex-con, but he's an ex-con for a particular reason. And I mean, it's got one of those that feels like it's going to be the mystery of the series or the season at least. And instead, they kind of take care of it in the first one, which I think is actually smart. You don't need to have, not every series need to have this personal driving thing for a character. He's used to be a photographer for a newspaper. Uh, some kid tried to steal his camera, and he ended up beating the crap out of him. Turns out the kid is the son of a senator, and of course, he got put away for it. Spent like 2 years in Antioch or whatever it is, and now he's out, and he's trying to work as a PI. His ex-wife is remarried to a cop who helps him on cases. So, and he lives in a trailer in the middle of a trailer park. But this all takes place in South Florida, and they kind of play into the whole Florida man thing as well. So that part I find interesting. But what I'm finding is the show is really cleverly written. Where, again, the premise just feels like they went, we're going to take Rockford File, drop them into South Florida. But there's a lot of twists and turns that are really clever. That's outside of the box. And I mean, I'm 2 episodes into the 7 that have been released so far, and I found both of them to be clever, which I'm not a big fan of standard cable or standard television. I you got to really hit it for me, and this surprisingly did. It's light enough that it's fun, but it's clever enough that you go, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that." And I don't want to give away any of the twists, but both the first and second murders are kind of clever. The first one really impressed me. The second one was just different enough that I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know if they'll be able to keep this up through the show, but the cast is likable enough. Scott Speedman is likable enough that, yeah, there's enough little twists and turns. But again, just on the surface, it feels like they're trying to do Rockford Files. So just keep that in mind if you give it a shot. So, all right, let's look at the list. What else we're going to cover today? Um, let's see. We got a good number of people. You know, let's save Daredevil for one more, and we're going to go with Young Sherlock. Have you guys given Young Sherlock a chance? It's on Prime. It's 8 episodes. It stars Hero Finds Tinin, I think it's his last name, and Joseph Fiennes is in it as well as his father, which is fascinating because he's actually his uncle. Uh, Hero Finds Tinin is the son of Ray Fiennes. He makes a very interesting Sherlock. We also have Sherlock's mother, Sherlock's father, Mycroft, and James Moriarty. But in this, he and Moriarty are friends. They're kind of the good cop, bad cop thing. And all I could think of when I first started watching it is they're doing a Smallville. They are making us like the friendship between Sherlock and Moriarty, making us care about them so that when it ends up all going to hell, it's going to hurt. And they're doing that because you start seeing it in the first season. You start seeing some of the cracks, some of the differences between Sherlock and Moriarty, but they're not as pronounced in the beginning. And you just start to see little cracks. And it's really fascinating. The first 8 episodes are clever, well written. They're a lot of fun. There's some pretty serious topics, but they're done in that. Well, I put it this way: this series was created by, or partly created by, and I think some of the episodes were directed by Guy Ritchie. So it does have that Guy Ritchie Sherlock feel to it. The Holmes and the Watson interaction and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's supposed to be a prequel series or not. I don't think it is because I always got the feeling that I don't remember Holmes showing that he actually knew Moriarty before the confrontation. So, but even if it is or it isn't, this is really a fun show. And it's already got picked up for a season 2. Um, it's yeah, like I said, it's really well written. Natasha Mcellhorn is playing the mother. There's an introduction of Sherlock's sister, which is kind of a weird thing. I was talking to Lisa about Sherlock, and she's like, "Was his father always like this?" And I went, "No. There actually is no real stories about Sherlock's parents in the Arthur Conan Doyle work, nor is there ever mention of a sister. It's Sherlock, it's Mycroft, and Watson. And Mrs. Hudson. That's what we get. So the fact that we're getting this backstory and stuff, it's not contradicting anything uh, Arthur Conan Doyle did, but it's also not canon because he didn't touch this area. So you can kind of have fun in this area as long as you don't contradict what he did do. And I think they're so far they're okay because I mean Moriarty, if you're a Sherlock fan, you know, but if you're a casual Sherlock fan, you think Moriarty is like the master for Doctor Who, that he's always coming in and causing problems and stuff. And in all of the Sherlock work, Moriarty appears twice. And the second time is Reichenbach Falls. So, or, you know, it's kind of fascinating. So they can add a lot to the backstory. And that's what everybody does when they get a hold of these characters. You know, Sherlock was basically the mystery of the week. And a lot of the stuff that's sewn into as an ongoing story is brought by later writers. You know, we get in the Sherlock TV series, the Sherlock Holmes movies, stuff like that. They're additional things. But you go back to like the Jeremy Britt series, which is adapting the actual work, the actual Conan Doyle stories. None of that's there because it doesn't need to be, because each episode is what was written. So, and I don't have a problem with people having fun with it and playing with it, but it is fascinating to me that a lot of them go in the same direction. You know, suddenly there needs to be a sister, a younger sister, and they give her all kinds of names. You know, in this she's Beatrice. In there's the Enola Holmes series. Um, I don't remember what their name was in the Benedict Cumberbatch series Sherlock, but they got to a sister as well. So yeah, I mean Sherlock Holmes is a great character and is a quintessential for mystery writing because if you look at these detectives we have, there's a basic set of detectives that you use as your archetypes. You have Sherlock, who is brilliant, has a fatal flaw like addiction, and needs a Watson to connect with the audience. You see that in other storytelling, most notably in House. The television series House is a Sherlock Holmes variation, but he's a doctor instead of a detective, but he's still solving mysteries, just medical mysteries. And Wilson is Watson, and House is Holmes, and he is addicted. And even the first patient is named Irene Adler in the series. So right there, you know, but there are other archetype detectives. You've got the Sam Spade type, who you see a lot. Rockford is a Sam Spade type, talking about that. The guy who has a problem with authority, gets along better with the riffraff, uh, tends to get beat up more, tends to happen upon clues more than is really the true genius detective. He's a force of nature. And then you've got the unassuming detective like Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot, where you kind of underestimate them, you don't take them seriously, and then suddenly you're being arrested. And you get that in characters like Columbo and Monk. And then finally, you got the Nero Wolfe type, which is the genius. He's kind of a variation on Sherlock, but different in the sense that it's kind of somewhere between Sam Spade and Sherlock, because the genius doesn't leave the house. He doesn't actually get involved with the day-to-day footwork. He has a guy for that. And that's what I used for the Lucius Fogg novels. Lucius can't actually leave his house or he'll die instantly. So he needs Jimmy Doyle to go out and do the work and learn and deal with all the vampires and the werewolves and shit. So those are the archetype. And Sherlock is one of the most important. And the key is you need to always give the reader someone to connect to, whether it's Watson, it's Archie Goodwin, or Sam Spade himself. But hey, Thomas, good to see you. So yeah, the young Sherlock is really interesting. It's a fun series if you're looking for something to watch. It's 8 episodes, but they've already approved a season 2, and we're already seeing the cracks in the Moriarty relationship. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go next. So, all right, let's move on. Checking my list again. Taking young Sherlock off. All right, let's talk. Let's talk casting. Let's talk casting because there's a lot of casting information. Now, first, I'm going to do a outside the box casting announcement. This has to do with Rambo, or the upcoming prequel to the First Blood series. And David Harbour is joining the project as the younger version of Colonel Troutman. I think he's going to be a Lieutenant Troutman in this. And that was the character played by Richard Crenna in both First Blood and Rambo First Blood Part 2. But I hadn't heard this had been moving forward earlier, so I was surprised to see Noah Centineo appears to be playing Rambo, or John Rambo. And I'm never going to be able to get past the fact that Noah Centineo was in a show called The Recruit on Netflix, HBO, one of them. And we watched the first 2 episodes. And Lisa looked at him, or we were talking about whether we wanted to watch, what to watch. And she says, let's go back to that show with the Walmart Mark Ruffalo. And now I can't unsee that. Noah Centineo is the Walmart Mark Ruffalo. And they want me to believe him as Sylvester Stallone. That's going to be hard pressed. That is. But David Harbour, our Hellboy and Red Guardian, Frankenstein's monster, that's going to be interesting to see him in that role. So, yeah, I heard about the He-Man thing, and he's Ken. Oh, geez. I got to mention this. I saw the Street Fighter trailer, and my reaction was, nah. Which is weird because the Mortal Kombat one, I'm like, oh yeah. Street Fighter, like, no. It's just kind of goofy, And I realize that the characters are goofy. The whole thing is goofy. Oh, Jay says it's going to be stupid fun. And you know what? Maybe it will be. Oh, yeah, he was Adam Smasher, and he was fine as Adam Smasher. Um, but yeah, yeah, I can see it being stupid fun. And you know what? Maybe when it comes to streaming, but I'm not going to the theater to see Street Fighter. It's not happening. I'm having a hard time trying to convince myself to see Mandalorian and Grogu in the theater. So, because right now the next movie on my card that I want to go see is probably Supergirl or Spider Man. So we'll have to see. Or Godzilla minus zero. Don't know when that comes out. Before I get to mention it, I watched Death by Lightning this week. This was crazy. Did you get a chance to look at the Kennedy Lincoln thing? Yeah, I watched about half of it, and you're right. That is some weird stuff. That is. Yeah, Death by Lightning was a lot of fun, but it is absolutely crazy when you realize it's real. So, okay, let's go on. So, rest of casting. First thing, we talked before about the Batman Part 2 and how they seem to be having a problem casting Christopher Dent. And I thought, and my speculation is, the reason they were having a hard time is that there's nothing really redeemable about the character. When you're an actor and you're looking at a role, you're like, okay, how do I get into it? How do I connect to this role? And if you find somebody who is absolutely unredeemable, it takes a special kind of actor to be wanting to do that. And they went to everybody from Brad Pitt to Robert De Niro to Viggo Mortensen. I mean, they really tried to get an A-list actor. And I think now that they've kind of stepped away from that, they got somebody who's going to do the part well. And again, this hasn't been officially announced, but Deadline had it as an exclusive. Other sites are picking it up. And that is Charles Dance is going to be playing uh, Christopher Dent, Harvey Dent's father, who abusive father. And if the name Charles Dance doesn't ring any bells, Charles Dance is a great choice. I waited to not step on your reveal. Thank you. If you don't know who Charles Dance is, he was Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones. He was Tyrion and Jaime's father and Cersei's. And he's really good at playing the evil bastard. He did the same thing in the Day of the Jackal series, the remake series. He, you know, I can't remember the last time he played a good guy. It's kind of his wheelhouse. So to play just a horrible bastard, it's kind of like, get me a Charles Dance type. How about we get just Charles Dance? Go for it. The only downside is, and I don't think he's going to be a character that is going to keep repeating, but he's 79 years old. So just that's a 40-year difference between him and 30 some odd year difference. Yeah, I guess that actually works. Him and Sebastian Stan. He was Benedict in Lax. Oh my God, you're right. Last Action Hero. It has been so many years since I saw that. Wow. Yeah, but whenever Charles Dance shows up, you assume he's a villain. You just expect him to do bad things, And there's a few actors who get that, and it's always weird when they get a hero role or at least something non-evil. So, but Charles is really good, and I think it's a good casting, and I think it fits better. The problem is when you do get an A-list actor like some of the like Robert De Niro is great in mob movies, tough guy movies, where he's a tough guy, or comedy where him being a tough guy is part of the joke. But he's kind of that one trick, when you hire Robert De Niro, you're basically saying the character is Robert De Niro. You're getting Robert De Niro. Just like when you hire Jack Nicholson or John Wayne, you are getting that. You're not getting a Dustin Hoffman type character who kind of morphs into whatever the role is. So I think Viggo Mortensen was probably my favorite casting idea because I thought that would have been really good. But I think Charles Dance is going to be great. So, all right, so that's one bit of news. The other is kind of crazy. There was an announcement a little bit back that James Gunn was. What first happened was there was an announcement that James Gunn was looking at 3 different women for Maxima. And he came out and goes, that's bullshit. One of them was Adria Arjona, but the other 2, which I think one was Elle Purnell or whatever her name is, and he was like, I don't even know these other 2. I've never met them. So then shortly after, a different website came out and said, no, the testing's going on, but it's for, it's Adria Arjona, Eva De Dominici or whatever it is, Sydney Chandler, and then there was one other actress. Well, since then, the sites are saying Adria Arjona has joined Man of Tomorrow and that she's playing Maxima. While other sites are saying, yes, she's joined, but she may not be Maxima. They're kind of hinting that she might be Wonder Woman. And then another report came out and said Sydney Chandler is joining the DCU, but not in Man of Tomorrow. She's going to voice Nosferatu in Creature Commandos. It's like, okay. And she's the daughter of Kyle Chandler, who's playing Green Lantern. So, of course, that makes sense. Hey, let's keep it in the family. So you've got Kyle Chandler's daughter, and you've got Jason Momoa's girlfriend. James Gunn has worked with Adria Arjona before, or is it Arjona or Arjona? I honestly don't know, and I don't want to mispronounce her name. Hey, Kat. And hey, Andrew, how you doing? So now we've got Sydney Chandler. Well, another report is that Eva De Dominici is saying that she's also in Man of Tomorrow. So 4 women were testing and 3 of them got jobs? Who's playing Maxima? Is anybody playing Maxima? And why hasn't there been any announcements? Gunn came out and sort of confirmed a different casting, which we're going to talk about in a second. But yeah, that's bizarre. And Dominici says that there's going to be announcements soon. So maybe we're going to find out who all these people are and what they're doing or if they're in it. So should be an interesting week. All right, I'm seeing AC/DC also gave us Big Gun from AC/DC, right? Oh, Queensryche and Cypress Hill. Queensryche song. That wasn't Last Time in Paris, was it? That's from something else. What Queensryche song came from? All right, Andrew, which Queensryche song was on the Last Action Hero soundtrack? I don't have my copy around at the moment. I'd have to look it up. Real World. Okay, that's it. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the movie The Last Time in Paris came from. Was that Fort Fairlane? I love the Last Time in Paris song. That's probably my favorite Queensryche song, which is weird because I'm a big Queensryche fan. I've seen him in concert, but for some reason that song just sticks with me. All right, let's talk about the other casting for Man of Tomorrow. And this came in a strange way. Uh, James Gunn posted a picture of himself, uh, Blackheart, a couple of people that work on the cast, and then actor Andre Royo in this kind of a group picture. And Andre Royo used to be on The Wire, and he had worked with Gunn on the movie Super. And Gunn says in his post, after 15 years, it's great to be working with Andre again. Okay, so Andre Royo is an actor. I can't think of any other thing he would be doing on, unless he's taken up producing, directing, or something else. So he's going to be in the movie. So there's already people out there trying to speculate who Andre Royo is going to be playing. Now, and this is the second person from The Wire that's in the show, because Wendell Pierce is already in the show. Wendell Vaughn is Quasar. Wendell Pierce, who plays Perry White. So that's interesting. Now, I made a quick list of the people that they think Andre Royo could be playing in Man of Tomorrow. Now, the first one made me laugh. Somebody said that he could be Gus Gorman, which was Richard Pryor's character from Superman 3, and that they could just put a different spin on it, but name him Gus Gorman and add him to the staff. And I'm like, okay, that would be a neat nod to the old series since we've already had Mrs. Tessmacher and Otis. That would be kind of cool. I would find that cool. But yeah, I don't know if that's the way they're going to go. Another person mentioned Emil Hamilton from Star Labs, and that feels kind of on the money for me. Because if we're dealing with having Lex and Superman having to work together, they're going to have to work someplace. Star Labs makes sense. Having Emil Hamilton in it makes a lot of sense. Another name brought up is Morgan Edge, who is kind of another Lex Luthor type, but more corrupt businessman and less let me build myself a suit of armor. So I think he gets involved with, no, that's Mannheim. Never mind. So that's a possibility. John Jones, Martian Manhunter, is somebody that came up. The thing is, and I don't know how to put this delicately, anytime a black person is cast in the DC universe, somebody comes out and says, maybe he's John Jones. And yeah, that's possible because it's in the last, few years or since the turn of the century, and maybe a little before, they've used black actors for John Jones. David Harwood, can't think of the name of the guy on Smallville. Picture him. I know his dad was on Mission Impossible. But, and Phil Lamar did the voice. I mean, Phil Lamar didn't. No, Carl Lumbly did the voice in the animated series. So, yeah, it makes sense. But you've also got to remember that he's a Martian. So they could go any direction they want. And one of the people who's played a live action, Phil Morris, thank you. One of the people who's played a live action version of Martian Manhunter is David Ogden Stiers. Charles Winchester from MASH. It was the Justice League pilot they did that was never picked up, but yeah, he played Martian Manhunter. So I just think that's maybe a bad knee-jerk reaction that anytime somebody of color is a male actor of color is cast, that John Jones is the immediate uh, thought. And you would think it needs to be somebody who can pull off the role, can pull off the sensitivity of John Jones, but also the bravery and all this other stuff. And I don't know Andrew Royal. I'm not saying he couldn't do it. It just seems a little too knee-jerk reaction on that. Not saying he's not. And then the one other one I saw, which was kind of interesting, was somebody said he could be Silas Stone, which would lead us into Cyborg. But those are all kind of interesting. But Andre Royo joining. So I think we're going to get an announcement pretty soon, kind of like he did, where they did a table read and the picture showed everybody and kind of confirmed. I think we'll end up getting something like that. So now you guys remember what he did in between, the other show that he was on that was kind of a star maker. David Ogden Stiers was in Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, along with Ryan Reynolds, Nathan Fillion. Yeah. So it was kind of an interesting show. And though eventually they got rid of the pizza place and with it Stiers, because he was one of the customers at the pizza place. And when you got rid of the pizza place, you didn't need the customers anymore. All right, let's talk a little bit about CinemaCon. CinemaCon's a weird name, but people have to understand what CinemaCon is. CinemaCon is not an audience. It's not an audience participation thing. CinemaCon is for industry insiders to present the films that are coming up to the theaters, the cinemas, to get them to put the movies in the theaters, to help them get excited. That's the purpose. This is not San Diego Comic-Con. This is not D23. This is to get people excited for the movies that are coming out. That said, the critiques of the CinemaCon presentations are kind of funny. Star Wars is being known as meh. And it's being known as meh because they only did one thing. They talked about The Mandalorian and Grogu. They showed us a trailer. But The Mandalorian and Grogu is a TV show that they're trying to move to the big screen, and nobody's sure if it's going to work. And even for me, and I'm a big fan of The Mandalorian, I want it to work. I want it to be exciting, but it just feels like it doesn't feel like an epic Star Wars movie. The trailers they've shown makes it feel like just more of the TV show. Like this is season 4, So I understand the May reaction to that because there wasn't anything else. But I mean, there's nothing ready. That's the big thing people forget is that when you present a CinemaCon, you're focused on the movies that are going to come out between now and next CinemaCon to try to get the theaters to put them in. You're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about movies that are coming out later because you want to focus on the ones that you're trying to get into the theaters. This leads into the reaction to the DC presentation that people are calling underwhelming. Which I mean, I guess that makes the Star Wars one whelming because it just kind of went. All right, so they're saying DC slipped. They missed up, or not mentioning movies like Man of Tomorrow and the Batman Part Two, but both of them come out after next year's CinemaCon. So instead, they focused on the movies that are coming out this year. Supergirl, where they showed a new clip and a sizzle reel, and Clayface, where they actually showed first footage from that. Now, that seems smart to me. You don't talk about TV shows at CinemaCon. You don't talk about next year's stuff. You're focused on the stuff that's coming out in this calendar year or in the year between CinemaCons. Next CinemaCon, they're going to roll in there with Man of Tomorrow stuff and the Batman Part 2 stuff and anything else that's going to be in the theater. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense for them to tease something that's coming way in the future. You do that for fans. It didn't work for Sony, but we'll see how it works for DC and Clayface. Yeah, the Clayface thing is kind of interesting. I think why it might work is that it's just a straight up horror property. But the problem is it doesn't really connect. It's not connecting to the Batman in the DCU yet because there isn't a Batman in the DCU. And it's not supposed to be connected to the Matt Reeves Batman series. So I think people are looking at this going, well, what's this for? This is basically them going, hey, we had an idea for Clayface, let's put it out. But it doesn't connect to anything, it feels like. So I think that'll be the biggest draw. If they come out between now and October and give us a way it connects to one of the universes solidly, not just, oh yeah, it's part of this, but a solid connection, then I think it'll do well. And I think you'll get the horror people. So, hey Pete, how you doing? Do you think the Mando movie is the end of the Mando and Grogu storyline? Yeah, I think it is. Unless it does amazingly well. But I don't think we're doing TV anymore with it. So I think they're going to move on. I know they still have Ahsoka and they want to finish that up, and Mando could pop up on that. But I think we're done with Mando and Grogu as its own TV series, which is a shame because I thought it was a great TV show. And part of me wish they would have just stayed with television, you know? So now the other end of the spectrum, Marvel is saying, people are saying that they blew the doors off of CinemaCon. It was awesome. They brought back Chris Evans and they brought back Robert Downey Jr. and all this hype, but for one movie that comes out in December. And, they didn't follow it up. They didn't release the trailer online. And it didn't leak, which is surprising too. But, so it's funny to me that DC and Marvel basically did the same thing. And DC slipped and Marvel blew off the doors. So I don't get it. DC actually had Jason Momoa ride into the theater on Lobo's bike. Marvel had Chris Evans decide not to hug Robert Downey Jr. Let's see. Jay says, that's the feeling I'm getting with Punisher. Is Marvel about to be done with him? No, I don't think so at all. Because if you think about it, Punisher is getting his own special. after Daredevil. The week after, there's going to be a Punisher 1 hour special, co-written by John Bernthal, and then he's showing up in Spider-Man. So Marvel is literally lifting him up into the cinematic universe as well, which only Daredevil has done before, and Miss Marvel. So no, I don't think they're done with him at all. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another Punisher series after this, or maybe a Punisher movie or something. Really depends on what ideas they come up with. But no, I don't think they're done with Punisher. If anything, now that they've got Bernthal back and they're reestablishing the Defenders and the whole Netflix universe, I think they're going to start leaning into that. And the TV side will focus on the street level stuff, and the bigger stuff will be in the movies, which makes a lot of sense. You know? So, and then you can bring the characters back and forth depending on the situation. But, all right. Let's see. I had two things left to talk about. Three, technically, as I've got the backup. The Pitt season finale. If you don't watch the Pitt, I totally get it. It's a medical drama, but it's unlike most medical dramas. Most medical dramas, you have these overarching arcs that take place over a season, and you see the character grow through it, and you resolve everything by the end, or it's a cliffhanger. The Pitt is a 15-episode series that takes place over 15 hours in the same day at an emergency room in a hospital. And they've done 2 seasons, so we've seen 2 days of these people's lives. And where the first season was lauded, just people loved it. The second season is getting some feedback, some negative feedback, because of they didn't wrap things up tightly. And every time I see that, I think, how much shit do you wrap up in a single day? If you're dealing with depression and is questioning whether or not you want to live anymore, you think you're going to be okay by the end of a single day? Or do you think you probably need to go to therapy over some weeks and some months and to really put in the effort and the time? And wouldn't it be just totally disingenuous for a show that prides itself on being as realistic as possible to just go, look, he's all better? Also, people are like, how come that character's leaving the show? Well, because the nature of the show, it's a teaching hospital. So doctors come in, they do their residency, and then they move on. So then you bring in new characters, take old ones out. So it's just interesting that people seem to be trying to read into a lot of this stuff. And it's like they're showing you a day in the life of doctors over, we saw it once during a mass shooting event and then a 4th of July. The next one's going to be in sometime in like November or December. We're seeing snippets of these people, and a lot of the character growth is going to happen in between the seasons because of the way it's set up. But I don't think people know how to watch a show like that. You know? How I think women would get this better. My example is more of female geared, but it's like going to your hairdresser or the person that does your hair. You don't see them regularly. You see them every month, every 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. But when you do, if you've been going to them for a long time, you catch up. You find out everything that's been going on. And then by the time you leave, nothing's really changed, but you've got the latest. And that's what it is we're kind of going in and finding the latest and catching up. And when you leave, it's like, okay, that's what's happening right now. And when we come back in 4 months, we'll get caught up and go forward with the next set of stories. It's a unique show with some really good writing, some really good events, and good acting. But I think people need to understand how to watch it. Remember people asking the same thing about House. Why did they change his interns? Princeton Plainsboro was a teaching hospital. Exactly. Yeah, these people are supposed to go on and finding their careers and stuff, you know? Uh, so I do love The Pit. I've enjoyed it. It's 15 weeks of prime television, premium television, and I can't wait for January when we get season 3. But, there's so many people online who just talk about it in such a weird way. Or during the season, it's like, oh, I think this is going to hit these grandiose soap opera type things. And it's like, that's not the show. Oh, this character is going to have a seizure and drive off the roof. What? Where on earth would that come from? So, all right. So I made you wait to get to the end. But let's talk Daredevil in this last episode. The last episode, episode 5, was slower, was more thoughtful. Character growth in pairs. You have Kingpin and Vanessa at her hospital bed. You have Bullseye and Daredevil trying to escape the anti-vigilante task force. And you have Buck and Daniel going off into the woods. And it's funny because Daniel is played by Michael Gandolfini, the son of James Gandolfini. All the Soprano metaphors were thought of, and oh, he's going to get whacked. He's done. Yeah. But the episode to me was a good breath of fresh air. It was like, okay, we've been going like crazy for 5 episodes or 4 episodes. We just had a major thing happen. We need to reconnect to the main characters. We need to get back to the Wilson Fisk that we started with, and we need to get back to the Matt Murdock we started with. And the person that centered Matt Murdock was Foggy Nelson, and the person that centered Wilson was Vanessa. Now, it was pretty obvious Vanessa was going to die after the 4th episode, but they give us another episode with her, and they kind of do a bait and switch and whatnot. But anyway you look at it, this was an episode to really, again, ground Wilson in who he is. He's been a little different since, and this feels like we're going to get back to the Netflix Kingpin. Also feels like we're going to get back to the Netflix Daredevil, with seeing how Foggy affected him and made a lot. And it's more than just Catholic guilt that drives Daredevil. There's also the role model he had with his friend. So I think it was an important episode, even though it was a slow episode. It also reminded me when Daredevil Born Again was first announced, and they said Michael Gandolfini was joining the show. And everybody said, oh, he could be the Rose, he could be this, he could be that. And I had a different idea. And this idea hasn't left because I still think it feels possible. What if he is somebody else? He's not just some kid off the street intern working his way up. What if he was the son of Owlsley, Leland Owlsley, from the first season? because Leland Owlsley is the character, the owl, in Daredevil comics, another major Daredevil villain. And we don't really get a lot of Daredevil villains. We get Bullseye, Elektra is kind of half and half. We get the Hand, and we get Kingpin, but that's it. That's all we've gotten in the show. In now, it's basically the fifth season. So you got to start figuring out other characters. And in the first season, Leland talks about his son and trying to protect his son. So it would make sense. And this is what I first saw: is he looked like Michael Gandolfini looked like he could pull off being the owl. Now, I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I haven't brought that up in a while because it's just random speculation. But I like it. And I think it would be really smart. If this guy, and it starts making sense of why he's doing stuff like allowing BB to leak stuff, and trying to keep, because he knows it's BB. So it would make sense if he was there for other reasons and if he was there trying to get the dirt on the Kingpin. So, but if he's there to do it to take over, that would be interesting. No, he's not Mephisto. So that's my thought on the latest Daredevil. I can't wait for the next episode. All right, I'm going to throw one other thing out there because this I found today that just fascinates me. You guys know who Mark Harmon is, right? Actor, NCIS, plays Leroy Jethro Gibbs, has played him in like 430 episodes of NCIS, along with appearing on other NCIS shows. He's voicing the character, narrating the character in the new NCIS Origins. Before that, Gibbs. Before that, he was on shows like St. Elsewhere, Chicago Hope, West Wing, Reasonable Doubt. I mean, he's been around for many, many years. Summer School, exactly. This guy has one of the most interesting backstories ever. His mother was an actress. His father was a war hero and a Heisman Trophy winner. So he's got pedigree right there. Mark, I believe, also served in the military, but he went to UCLA and was a starting quarterback there. Or was it USC? I think it's UCLA. He got a lot of his fame came from being the spokesman for, was it Coors or Bud Light? I don't remember right now. But and he got picked as the second sexiest man of the year by People magazine. People had done that with Mel Gibson the year before, and they decided Mark Harmon was the new one. So all of this just fascinating. But then you go a little deeper. Do you guys remember the show Ozzie and Harriet? Or Ozzie and Harriet and Ricky Nelson, who I believe is the father of the band Nelson, Gunner, and who were on the Peacemaker cruise. Well, I believe their mother is Mark Harmon's sister, Christy Nelson, who met Rick Nelson when she was 13 at a celebrity basketball game. So she was 13, he was 23. They married when she was 17 and he was 27. And they were married for like 20 years, I think. But so, okay. Now this guy's got Ricky Nelson, who was kind of a pop icon in his day, who was on the show Ozzie and Harriet and also was putting out music all the time. Yeah, it was on the charts. And you're thinking, okay, so he's got famous parents, a famous brother-in-law. That's got to be it, right? Now, he's been married for a very long time to Pam Dauber. Pam Dauber, if you don't remember, was Mindy on Mork and Mindy. And then he tells the story about when he realized he wasn't going to make it in football, how he jumped into acting. And this will be where I wrap it up. Is he randomly called Jack Webb, the producer of Dragnet, and just ended up talking him into starting to hire him. He just got him on the phone somehow, cold called him, got him on the phone, ended up going to, he goes, well, let's come down and talk. And they went down and talked, and that's where his career got started. But the fascinating thing is if you watch old episodes of NCIS, there is an episode, and it's the only time I remember seeing Gibbs smile early on, when he was doing his routine with a guy, asking questions and stuff. And he says, very Joe Friday of you. And he actually smiles and goes, thanks. It's like, okay, well, now we know where that nod comes from, because his connection to Jack Webb, the guy that created Dragnet. So yeah, that was my useless information for the day. Mark Harmon has an amazing life. All right, guys, that's going to wrap that up. Went a little long, but I smell dinner is just about ready. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next week. Hopefully we'll have another ton of stuff to talk about. Hopefully we're going to get some some casting announcements on Man of Tomorrow and see what's happening with that. So, all right, guys, take care, be safe, and I will see you all next Sunday. Be good.